with regards to the laundry, I go to all care homes across the city, and largely they have domestic appliances for cleaning. I suppose, obviously, I'm going to do a lot of education around that, but my question is, what detergents would you be recommending from the research that you've done?
OPLs, where they've got more of an industrial type laundry, and when washing machine, sorry, and when they do that, the detergent companies will provide alongside that machine the detergents that should go into that machine on certain cycles, because it's not necessarily just about the detergent, it is about the cycle that detergent is within as well. So they shouldn't really be using domestic because you can't regulate it. But with the OPLs, it's obviously dosed in, and that's the key thing. So they should have OPL with dosing. Domestic machines are non-compliant and should only be used as an exceptionally temporary measure, which we know is just not what's happening. But really, they should be moving towards that.
Thank you. Got another question for Andrew as well.
Oh, yeah, hello.
So I used to work in the ICB as well.
Yeah.
So I've worked everywhere. But I used to go to primary care practices, and we tried to set up a tool. But we were finding that when we went to surgeries that were providing minor surgery, they hadn't actually been signed off for anything to perform these procedures. And I went to somewhere where they were performing surgery, hernia repairs, but they could get out of a bed into a chair straight after the surgery.
Yeah.
But I was seen after the event. So, after they'd built or renovated the areas. So I just wondered if, again, if we could probably work together.
Yeah.
Or, obviously you've already done a lot of the hard work already. Or if you know when the HBNs or the HTMs are actually being updated, because I don't think a lot of my colleagues are aware of that either.
Yeah, I'm doing some work with, there's actually a friend and a colleague from up in Sheffield, where I'm from, a guy called Rob Townsend. It was done some work on the ventilation guidance as well. So we are looking at lots of things. But one of the things we're doing in London is these new big primary care hubs that we're building. They sort of trying to shut down some of the tail practices and amalgamate them into one bigger hub. And in those hubs, we're looking at future-proofing them all with minor ops suites built into them, and endoscopy suites and things like that. So just to make sure that they're built to standard from the offset. So there's lots of work going on about future-proofing. I think that's the buzzword at the moment. So yeah, but I'm more than happy to share details, so that's fine. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Nikki Penk. I'm Head of Cleaning at East Midlands Ambulance Service. So first of all, just thank you to all the speakers, because I've actually found this morning really, really interesting. So that's really good. I've got a question for Emma, please, just in regards to the national cleaning standards, particularly for the ambulance sector. So you'll be aware that we were promised them in January this year, and it's gone a little radio silent, and I know you've kind of touched on that it will be coming out towards the end of this year. I was just wondering sort of what the consultation stroke communication is going to be like with the ambulance service, because I've personally not seen a copy of the standards or know what's going to be involved in there. Just be nice to have a bit of an update, please.
So a number of ambulance trusts have been involved in pulling it together, as well as a number of colleagues who worked on the original cleaning standards as well. It's been through the ambulance national team, if that makes sense. Obviously, once it does arrive for care homes and the ambulance sector, there'll be a certain amount of time to absorb it and get ready to be compliant. It won't be like, look, it's landed now, you've got to do it all straight away. It'll be exactly the same as when we issued the original 2021 standards. So the guidance is very similar to the rest of the standards, but there are additional tools for care homes and for primary and for the ambulance sector, including a number of additional methodologies, for example, for cleaning. There are some exemptions. Obviously, we do not expect the ambulance sector to be putting up commitment to cleanliness charters or star ratings in their ambulances, because let's face it, if you are in the back of an ambulance, you probably don't care at that particular point. But yeah, generally there are some differences to the main standards, but it has been worked on with a group. And when we actually have a date for publication at the moment, it's with what we call top of the office. So they're just doing this final sign off before we get a date for publication. As soon as we know what that date is, it'll get communicated out.
I know it's working. Hi, Donna Hepworth, infection control nurse. I've worked around a few places. First question to Katie: how environmentally friendly is the detergent for OPL washing machines?
None of them are particularly environmentally friendly, but they are being worked on, so some are better than others. One particular one is ozone, but that, again, it still has to be used with chemistry to be effective. But there's a lot of work going on within the chemistry companies to move to more sustainable environment. Hypochlorous is the other one. So it's definitely moving forward in that direction where there is chemistries coming out that we're seeing that are effective and are more environmentally friendly, which doesn't necessarily mean they'll be used just on their own, but what it does mean is you can lower the level of some of the toxic, more toxic detergents.
Thank you. Question for Andrew. You showed us some nice photographs. Now, I've seen plenty of horror scenarios in my experience. The question I'm always asked, whether I've been working in prisons, in health centres or whatever, is where's the actual evidence that wound infections, for instance, or negative patient outcomes are increased as a consequence of these environments?
That's the same sort of scenario as bare below the elbows, isn't it? There isn't any evidence. So it's anecdotal. The fundamental thing that we're aiming to achieve is compliance with IPC and cleaning standards. And when you look at the physical environment, which is what I'm doing at the moment, and you genuinely ask yourself, can that environment be cleaned? Or the equipment in that environment be cleaned? Then you've answered yourself. Whether it's related to patient infections or not, or wound care infections, is almost incidental. It's can you look at the environmental cleaning, and the wound care side of it can be accessed separately or dealt with separately. There is definite correlation between some environments and wound care, which we know because I've some of the theatres. One place I went to in, again, I can't see where it was. They had a higher instance of superficial wound infections, and they found that all 8 theatre trolleys were split and blood contaminated, all 8 of them. So there is some correlation, but it's the actual evidence tying one to the other is anecdotal, really. Unless you want to.
There has been studies done and scientific papers published. One that pops to mind particularly is VRE, so vancomycin-resistant enterococcus, where an exponential increase in ventilation in the room results in the same exponential decrease in the VRE in the room. So there is studies on built environments from a more scientific point of view. That's just one off the top of my head, but I've read multiples of them. But definitely, whether it's the same with textiles, has that piece of textile, has that bit of missing wool caused that infection? Unless we were going to do some unethical studies, is quite hard to prove. So.